What's up, y'all, and welcome to the Weekenders. This is the show where we talk about the biggest football games of the weekend, and there are some huge football games this weekend we're going to talk about, particularly in college football. But first, as we've been doing in the past couple of weeks, as it pertains to college football, we got to talk about the college football poll, the college football playoff poll, excuse me, and some of the happenings from that. This weekend was a crazy weekend in college football. Um, and then, but before I go on, Bobby, Lexi, what's up? Welcome.
What's
What's up?
up?
Good to see you. But no, yeah, the this weekend was crazy. A lot of close games. A lot of situations where teams that were like, okay, in this game they should dominate. They should win by however many scores. Like a lot of close games, a lot of upsets, things that sort of happen when teams are either looking ahead or whatever. It was a crazy week all around. I mean, so many teams. You had Tennessee get blown out by South Carolina. You had my UNC Tar Heels lose to Georgia Tech. You had close games with Michigan, Illinois, Ohio State, Maryland, and TCU, Baylor. Some of those we thought might be close, but just a crazy, crazy week in college football. So it all culminates to the last week of the regular season, which is crazy to think that we're even here. I remember when we were, just talking about like, week zero, week one, getting to this point, and now this is the end of the road for a lot of teams as we move. Well, before we get to bowl season at least, but the end of the regular season road for a lot of teams, and we do have some change in the college football playoff based on the results of the crazy weekend that was in college football. So, Lexi, why don't you go first? Give me your initial thoughts about the way this week's rankings shaked out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the top four, obviously, here when Michigan was like about on the verge to lose to Illinois, I'm thinking, okay, well, they're probably going to kick out of the top four. But then everyone else followed suit, and it was all about survive and advance. So those top four I knew were pretty much locked in and weren't going to change. USC, with a good win coming out and being number five, but I still, LSU, like again, they are just propping it up to make sure that no two Big Ten teams could get in, and I don't like that. There's a few questionable spots that I'm unhappy with, and they're just really showing such a bias anymore that it's almost like, okay, are you even trying to hide it at this point? Like, are you even attempting to say, oh, I'm going to try to remain neutral here and just make sure the best team gets in, because it's just not happening. So it's frustrating, but just win out. It's all my team can do at this point.
Yeah, it definitely does feel like they're conditioning us to the fact that a two-loss LSU team is probably in the CFP. Two-loss LSU. If they win the SEC championship, they're probably in, along with Georgia. Which I think it's fair. I also don't think. I don't think they're going to lose. I think Georgia's going to win. I think Georgia has that SEC championship on lock. And honestly, Tennessee did the Big Ten a massive favor, as well as the Pac-12, and in some ways the Big 12 as well, and kind of the ACC with Clemson, but yeah, they kind of stink. So, I gotta say the odds of two SEC teams getting in definitely a little bit lower than they were before this week started. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it shakes out. A lot of really good one-loss options out there, especially if TCU falls. And look, I wouldn't discount the Horned Frogs if they lose in the Big 12 championship. So
The crazy thing about LSU though is like you look at their resume now, and it's so like different. Like you're like when they beat Alabama, you're like, oh, okay, that's crazy. They're going to get bumped up, but like you weren't really thinking of them of having a shot. And now like their two losses don't look that bad anymore because Florida State is now ranked what 16th, who they lost to in a close game in the beginning of the year. and then you have Tennessee, of course, who it came back, but still a top 10 team in the rankings. So it's like you have that, two loss, but two quote unquote good losses compared to USC's one loss to a Utah team that's ranked at 14, and then I didn't see the full ESPN broadcast of the committee's comments, but apparently they were saying that USC's defense was one of the reasons why they have them ranked behind LSU. So I mean, which is fair. I mean, USC doesn't. I mean, they in those two kind of big games against Utah and UCLA, you allow 40 points in those games, but those are good teams. So it's a tough conversation. It's a little weird. Another thing that I thought was very interesting too, when looking at the strength of schedule for LSU and USC, LSU's strength of schedule is 15 compared to USC's at 58. So big difference there. Like it's crazy when you think about it, but I kind of find myself being like, okay, I kind of understand how they got to LSU being above USC, to be honest. And then, and honestly, I don't think, if you want to even get deeper into it, like, I don't think USC and Clemson's resumes are that much different. Because I believe Clemson's 56th in strength of schedule. So, pretty close to one-loss teams behind, a two-loss LSU, and in Clemson's case, you're behind a two-loss Alabama. So, I mean, it will be interesting to see. It's obviously certain teams have to take care of business this weekend in their conference championship to get in a certain place. But, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. Bobby, I do agree with you, though. I think Georgia takes care of business against LSU and settles that whole, conversation there.
Yeah. And I also do want to say, I think it's so interesting, the dialogue we've had about one-loss USC, if they run the table, versus a one-loss TCU. Because here's the thing. Let's say TCU does lose. Either Iowa State, that would be a bad loss at home, or in the Big 12 championship. If they lose in the Big 12 championship, they've still beaten everybody on their schedule because it's a round robin system. Everyone plays everybody. Just because you didn't beat them again doesn't mean, that's that bad. So why are we acting like if TCU falls once, they're completely gone, but USC, who has had a worse strength of schedule, who does not look like a more complete team, is like, would be better. I think comparatively, USC and TCU, if you look at the football team on paper, TCU has the better resume in that hypothetical situation than USC. The difference is you don't want to see TCU in the playoff because they're not nearly as fun as USC. That's it. It's all about branding. 100%. You don't want to see the small Christian, the little small private school who literally could not fill up Jerry World with the amount of living alumni they have. You'd rather see USC because it's the brand, because it sells T-shirts, and because it makes you think of warm, fuzzy feelings when Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart were in college.
TCU would be interesting, though, because if they lose and then you have Clemson and USC, went out, like, then I guess, like, I mean, you would be arguing them against two conference champions and then LSU maybe, or the loser of Ohio, Michigan. Like, I mean, TCU would have to kind of be you'd have to argue them against a lot of different teams, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, no offense, but like, it wouldn't even be a question of TCU versus like USC or Clemson. To me, it would be a question of TCU versus the Michigan-Ohio State loser, because I mean, fair. like that to me is probably more significant just based on strength of schedule. Although all three teams had really bad non-conference schedules. So I don't know. Like there's a lot of different layers there.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And I will give TCU credit. They made an attempt at scheduling a Power 5 team. It's not their fault. Colorado was a dumpster fire, and SMU, they're okay. They're not that bad, but no, it's interesting. I will say, it would be very ironic if TCU lost in the Big 12 championship and got kicked out of the playoff because of that. Because the entire reason that playoff or that championship game exists in the first place is because TCU and Baylor got left out in 2014 because they didn't have a championship game. So now, ironically, playing this unnecessary championship game could cost the Frogs at winning at getting into the college football playoff, which would be wild and hilarious.
Lexi, any final thoughts before we move on?
Just win, baby. That's just all I gotta think from here. So every team, just win.
Well, on that note, let's talk about the biggest game of the weekend, and perhaps the year.
Of my life. Of my life.
of Lexi's entire life.
So far.
So far, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Number 3, Michigan at number 2, Ohio State. This is obviously, as we've spoken about on this show, going to be at noon for I guess safety reasons. But should be a fun game in Columbus, Ohio. Like this is, I mean, we've talked about a lot of strength on strength matchups this year, but like this is like extreme, like that to like times 10. I mean, this Michigan defense is phenomenal. They're number 1 in the FBS in points allowed and points and yards allowed. Excuse me. And then on the opposite end, you have Ohio State, who obviously has an extremely dynamic offense. But let's talk about maybe one of the most important players in this game, Blake Corum, and also if he can't go, Donovan Edwards. Like, what's the latest on the status of those 2 players? And Alexi, I want to ask you, how does it affect Michigan if neither one of those players can go, especially Blake?
Yeah, I mean, if no players go, it's just, hold on like hell and pray for the best, okay? don't leave the game. And I'm not making excuses, we've stepped up all year. Anytime there's been an injury, there's stepped up all year. But, Blake Corum, we're not going to know until like 2 minutes before game time, because I feel like, Harbaugh's just always been tight-lipped anyways, but he's going to be extra tight-lipped about this because he wants to either think that, you don't have to prepare for Blake, don't worry about it type of thing. But I think that if Blake is even somewhat healthy, he's going to play this game. It's the biggest game of his life, so far for all these guys. Like I said, if they're going to be healthy, and that's across the board, offensive line, our defense, and Mike Morris, who sat out for the Illinois game, you're going to play. If you can, you're going to. So Donovan Edwards, the rumor has it that there's a broken bone between his thumb and wrist. So, and that's why he hasn't played for now, I think, going on 3 games. And that's not confirmed. I don't know anything about that. That's just what's been said and what I've kind of heard around. But there's a reason he's not playing. So, not having him as a backup, and Blake obviously kind of exposed a little bit in that Illinois game. Now we had a lot of other, injuries in that, but it's just going to be playing to your hardest ball you can, because no matter what, whether Blake plays or not, we're going to have to, win in the trenches. So I'm not trusting this JJ passing game because we haven't been doing it all year. I mean, if somehow, by the grace of God, he comes out flying like an NFL player and connecting on these receivers, I'll shut my mouth, But I think it's really going to show here if we need to start doing more passing throughout the season, like if we can't beat these guys on the ground because of injuries.
Yeah, I think Jim Harbaugh's reluctance to really open the game up for JJ McCarthy has been kind of damning to me, that he doesn't really trust the passing game. And, he hasn't had to a lot throughout the season, with how good Corum's been. And I think you're concerned about that if you're Michigan, because I'll put it this way. Michigan can't win a shootout with Ohio State. If this game gets into a shootout, Michigan will lose. They cannot play that free-flowing, passing it around type of football that Ohio State can. And that's okay. That's just not how they're built. So the health of Corum and Michigan's running core is, I mean, that's paramount if they want to have a chance at winning this game in the shoe.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about another aspect of this. Well, kind of the thing that I alluded to in the beginning, which is the Michigan's defense versus Ohio State's offense. I think, like, if Blake Corum plays, obviously that's going to help even things out. But I think on the other side, as Bobby kind of alluded to with Ohio State's offense, I'm not really a I don't want to say like not a CJ Stroud believer, but I feel like when he's uncomfortable, like he does not always like rise above um that discomfort. I think it shows. Honestly, I that's how I feel about it. So, what does Michigan need to do from a defensive standpoint, whether Blake Corum plays or not, in order to, help slow
Contain,
down, I guess, or contain the
yeah.
Ohio State offense, or can they even do it? Like, what's gonna need to happen there?
I mean, I think that Ohio State's offense was better last year. And I don't know if that's statistic, but I mean, just by the eye, it was. And we had no issue containing them then. And I think our defense is even better than last year. Yeah, we don't have that edge, crazy pressure like we have with Hutchin Ojabo. But, if Mike Morris is healthy and he's leading this defense, the key to this game is pressuring CJ Stroud, because as soon as he's pressured, I mean, he got pressured a lot. And I'll say last year, he threw for well over like 350 yards in the game. So it wasn't that like he couldn't, but like he would have went off even more had he not been pressured like he was. So that is the absolute key. Besides the trenches on offense, like we're going to have to contain and pressure CJ. That's going to be really the evidence here in winning that game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's all about frustrating Stroud. Stroud has had his worst performances pretty much across the board whenever they're on the road, whenever they're not at home in the friendly confines, in Columbus. And, if this game was at Michigan at the Big House, it'd be different. Obviously, we saw him completely struggle last time out. So Michigan's defense is going to have to be on him early, have to really, really make them suffer. And my thing is, look, it's a good crowd. It's a big crowd. Obviously a massive stadium. But the thing is, the second you get them doubting, when, things don't look right, when the offense isn't clicking the same way, maybe you have a long offensive drive for Michigan and they can't get the ball back, and those people will be quiet. You can get them quiet easy if you take away, their moments to believe in, their moments to get excited. So really making them frustrated, just getting that sense of, oh God, maybe it's happening again, is important. And it's about staying consistent as well, because we've also seen with this Ohio State team, they can score in numbers, in bunches. That they were dead to rights against Penn State, but they've clicked together, figured it out, and that momentum just avalanched the Nittany Lions completely. Final score doesn't nearly reflect how close that game was. So Michigan has to be disciplined. They have to stay tough, stay tight all the way through, or else Ohio State can turn things around, make their momentum up like that, especially at home.
Yeah, and I'll point out, as we talk about the keys to victory for both teams, because this game was in Columbus last year, I think Michigan should pay close attention to the Oregon game last year, because of how physical Oregon came and showed up in that game, the way they controlled the line of scrimmage and the way they controlled the ball, the way they pressured CJ Stroud. And again, that game was in Columbus, so I think that sort of game is the blueprint for Michigan if they want to win this game. I think that's how they have to do it. Yeah, Lexi, go ahead, give us the keys to victory for Michigan. for Michigan.
Yeah, it's just going to be, containing CJ Stroud, pressuring, and just taking care of the ball. You cannot turn over the ball against Ohio State because they'll turn it into 7 points. So, no interceptions, no fumbles, and control the penalties. Ohio State's been penalized like crazy this year. It's like one of the most undisciplined teams. So, I'm here for, just getting under their skin and getting in their head. And that's what you're going to have to do, considering, especially because it's at home, at their place. So.
Bobby, what are the keys to victory for Ohio State?
Yeah, in kind of the inverse of what I was saying about Michigan, it's about pouring it on them early. It's about, making that offense just absolutely hum. You have all those damn 5-star receivers. You have all that talent. You have CJ Stroud. Go out and run amok on them. And, I think Ohio State has the capability to do it. They haven't really showcased it a lot against good opponents. But look, this is a game. This is where you step up and show that you are as good as you think you are. That goes for Ryan Day. That goes for everybody. And, if they get on them early, if they get up to a big lead, that momentum, that crowd, that is a hard thing to bounce back from if you're a road squad, especially not a particularly explosive one. And I'll also say Ohio State's defense, they need to step up, get turnovers, and make Michigan either get turnovers, make them go 3 and out, because you do not want Michigan to have all the time in possession. You want explosive plays. You want that crowd going. That's really what it's about. Just turn this thing into a scarlet and gray avalanche and a nightmare for the Wolverines.
Alrighty, so we got Ohio State with a 7.5 line, which is I think is fair. 56 over under. I'll go ahead and say that I have a lot of question marks on this game because again, like I think Blake Corum's health is paramount to what Michigan's going to be able to do. I have to say I'm gonna pick Ohio State only because I don't know. Like I think JJ McCarthy is fine. I just think, as Lexi said earlier, I think he hasn't had enough chances to go out and prove he can win, through the air. So I feel like I don't think Michigan is one-dimensional. I just think they played one-dimensional because it works. And sometimes if you don't play multidimensionally because either you can't or you choose not to, I think that can actually be a detriment. So because that's a question mark for me from the Michigan standpoint, I think Ohio State wins the game, but I think it's close. Bobby, go ahead with your pick.
Well, I'm not going to make a lot of friends on the Michigan side here with this prediction because I'm big on Ohio State minus 7.5 here. Given the injury issues with the Wolverines, Corum status in doubt, and really just JJ McCarthy's inexperience of really airing it out, I just don't see him doing it, especially on the road. Look, they've only played 3 road games all season long. Those locations at Iowa, at Indiana, and at Rutgers. Not exactly a tour of death for the Wolverines. So I think this is they don't really have that experience of having to gut it out in a tough road environment. And frankly, I don't think they're just as good as they were last year. And Ohio State, I think, just kind of gets in and overwhelms them. These rivalry games, home team advantage, so important. I think Ohio State really gets after them and kind of pours it on, unfortunately.
I can respect it. The shoe is going to be pretty impossible task, but nothing of these guys can't do, and I can't pick against my boys. I have, I might be nervous to all hell going into this game, but, if Blake Corum is healthy, and, one key I did leave out earlier was Luke Schoonmaker, because if they try to, take away the pass and the run, those cross and slants that they murdered Michigan with back in 2018, I say we can do that too. So I'm thinking that, as long as we can take care of that middle of the field, it won't be a problem. I got 38-31 Michigan.
Fantastic. Well, that should be an awesome game. Looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun. It's going to be a big game for a lot of reasons, but Ah man, I can't imagine how nervous you are, Lexi. I
No, it's
cannot
terrible. I just can't
imagine.
even think of it right now.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on to another game which has a little bit of um, an impact on the way things will shake out from a college football playoff standpoint. Because South Carolina is hot, a big win over Tennessee, and they're going into Clemson, who is trying to protect their million game winning streak at home, but also stay within their I guess a slim chances of making the playoff. But maybe an impressive win over a hot South Carolina team helps impress the committee a bit if they get a win in convincing fashion. That game is at Saturday at noon as well. It's in Death Valley at Clemson. Um, what have been the biggest factors for South Carolina's turnaround? Because one of the things, I mean, they're 7-4. Like, they were kind of left for dead. Like South Carolina often is at the beginning of the season. But they are good team. Probably gonna get a nice bowl bid. Definitely, showed a lot in that Tennessee win. But what's kind of been the thing that's helped them get to this point this year.
This is one of the more confounding teams I've seen in a while, because frankly, up until this Tennessee game, they didn't look that great. They're fresh off of a 38-6 loss in the swamp against a bad Florida team. They lost to Missouri at home, and then obviously to start the season, they got just swamped by Arkansas and Georgia. So it's been a team that really had a lot of success in the kind of middle of their season, where they're playing the likes of Charlotte and South Carolina State, Texas A&M, of course, Vanderbilt. So it's not like they've kind of done well against poor competition. So a result like what we saw against Tennessee came out of nowhere. And really, I think you got to give credit to Shane Beamer, their head coach, and you got to give credit to Spencer Rattler, who really uncorked things and just went off against the Volunteers. Can they do it again, though? I don't know. This Clemson team has been pretty vulnerable, and it is a rivalry game. Anything can happen. But man, we'll see. That's a hard place to go in and play. But I don't. Who knows with this Gamecock team? They are so weird.
Yeah, I mean, Lexi, how does Clemson avoid a letdown at this point? Because Bobby's right. I mean, this is a rivalry game. Anything's on the table. Obviously, South Carolina's coming in off of a big emotional win against a really, high level opponent. And now they, have an opportunity to spoil, this again, Clemson's hopes to make the playoff. Like, how does Clemson kind of like stay focused?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say really not letting South Carolina special teams go off. They've been just, incredible this season, and really, the reason for their turnaround. They're number one ranked overall in college football right now, so not letting them go off on kick returns or punt returns is going to be huge. Containing that, and I'd say really. Clemson doesn't let this get away just by stopping, Rattler from like creating any kind of offense. So those are kind of like the two biggest points, I think, in Clemson keeping this game close or, maybe winning it.
Gotta love that Beamer ball special teams performance. Like father, like son, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson has got a lot to play for. This is a tough spot for them. Obviously, again, we talked about the stakes already, but looking forward to the ACC championship game. Like, this is a spot where I think Clemson's. I'll say the same thing for Clemson as I said about Michigan last week. That didn't happen, but maybe Dabo watches our show because Harbaugh obviously does not. Clemson's best interest. It's in Clemson's best interest to take care of this early. At halftime, if it's 35-0, whatever, like, do what you have to do. Take these guys out of the game. Don't give them any hope. Don't give Spencer Rattler any chances. Like, knock it out early so you can focus on, whatever you have ahead of you, like, obviously, don't get too far ahead of yourself, but like, I think it's in Clemson's best interest to make this not a game by the third quarter so that they can relax and focus on doing what they need to do in the ACC championship. But for South Carolina, like they have nothing to lose, and sometimes when you face a team like that, like that can be more dangerous than than facing the number one team in the country or whatever. So that's going to be a big test for Clemson. Obviously, we'll see how they handle it. They are favored by 14.5. And interestingly, I guess Vegas still believes in their defense because the over/under is 52, even after South Carolina just scored 1 million points on Tennessee. So we'll see how that
was
goes.
such a crazy game. I still can't.
Oh
get
my
over
god,
it.
So weird,
so insane.
I was so confused.
So insane, but yeah, no, that should be an interesting game. We'll see what happens there. All right, let's move on to the third big game on our list. This one obviously has a lot of college football playoff implications as well, and it's Notre Dame at USC. A big rivalry game in LA. Notre Dame was left for dead as well, but they've gotten some big wins, mostly over ACC teams, and funny enough, actually have struggled against the Pac-12 competition this year, but had some really big wins. Now they're ranked 15, and they have a date at USC in hopes to spoil their season. Spoil another team season as well, as they did Clemson earlier this year. I think the answer to the question is pretty obvious, but I'll ask it anyway. Is this a trap game for the Trojans?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I would say that Notre Dame is playing incredible right now, and especially coming back, being the left for dead. So I think a lot about even like the Michigan-Illinois game last weekend. It's like Notre Dame's even better than Illinois is. So if they look ahead and try to think, okay, we just want to focus on getting into the playoffs, that's all we care about, you're not going to get it because Notre Dame's going to stop you short. So this absolutely screams trap game vibes.
Yeah, the Irish have sort of been the Debbie Downers of college football this season. They roll into town. You have all the momentum in the world. You're like, oh, I'm Syracuse. I'm ranked. Nope, beat ya. Same with North Carolina. Everyone's like, oh, Drake May, look how good he is. And then they go in and beat him. And then Clemson, as we saw, they were undefeated and they knocked him off there. They have just a way of, showing up to these big games. And then next week, like, we'll turn around and barely beat Navy or lose to Stanford, who has one Pac-12 win. They are very baffling. They're very confusing, but at the same time, they play really solid football. USC's, I believe, before this game, USC's toughest pass defense they played all season has been Fresno State at 35th in the country. Notre Dame, by the way, they're 16th. So they're facing a way, way stauncher defense than they're used to seeing in the Pac-12. And, look, Caleb Williams has overcome a lot. They've kind of relied on him to kind of out-talent whoever they're playing. They did it against UCLA. They've done it against really everybody. But look, this might be a pretty tough position for them because they're going to have to play solid, disciplined ball across the board. But thankfully, they're at home. If this was in South Bend, it would be a totally different story, I think, but we'll see.
Yeah, Notre Dame's scary because, they're ranked 15th, and just imagine the type of team they'd be if Brian Kelly was still there. It's like this team just does not go away. I know they're only a year away from like the Brian Kelly era, but like credit to Marcus Freeman for the job he's done keeping that ship afloat in South Bend. But yeah, I agree with you. I think this might be we talked about it last week, how the Trojans might miss Travis Dye. I actually think this might be the game where they miss him more because Notre Dame likes to control the game on the ground. They've got a lot of they've had quite a few 200-yard rushing games this year. They like to use two tight ends. They're very old school type football, like physical type game, and so that this is a game where like you'd like to be able to run the ball, and so I think this might be the spot where again USC is kind of having a missing, having Travis Dye there. I also noticed, speaking of Caleb Williams in this pass defense, as Bobby you sort of mentioned earlier, Caleb Williams, as great as he is, definitely could play his way into pretty much like locking up the Heisman if he's performs well in this game in the Pac-12 championship. But um, he hasn't been like really consistent in the passing uh, from week to week, especially when it comes to his accuracy. You look at his from game to game, it's like 73 completion percentage, then like 57. Like it's very up and down. Hasn't had back to back completion percentages at 65% or higher since weeks 2 and 3. So this last week, I believe his completion percentage was like in the 70s. I feel like this could be a spot against a great Notre Dame pass defense where that falls back down. So if that does happen, like how does it affect the rhythm of the Trojans? Especially when you don't have your starting running back. So I think that you have to take all that into consideration in this game, and I think it's going to be a very, very tough, close battle. It's impossible to predict, who's going to win this game. Honestly,
Yeah, and if you look at it, the last time he's had to play like a really, really, really good defense might have been Oklahoma State when he was at OU. I mean, Utah was good, don't get me wrong, but they just weren't. They got roasted. So we'll see how it goes. He looks better than he did last year. But I'll say this for Notre Dame, and I said this earlier about J.J. McCarthy and how you don't want to get in a shootout with Ohio State. If you're Notre Dame, you don't want to get in a shootout with Drew Pine under center. That is not a way to win a football game. So it'll be about a lot of pace for Notre Dame, taking USC off rhythm, 3 and outs, frustrate the hell out of Caleb Williams. See what you can do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. So the line on this game is USC minus 5.5. Over under 64.5. To me, I think, this is going to be a tough game. I think, like, no one will be surprised. This is one of those games where no one will be surprised if Notre Dame wins. I'll just put that out there. Like, Notre Dame winning to me would not be an upset. I think it's completely on the table. Not going to be surprises at all. I think at this point in a game that's going to be this close after an emotional win against UCLA, I think USC's performance won't look as good. But I think if we're in a position where here it is, for all the marbles, go make the last play. I think I have to put my faith in Caleb Williams at this point, and I think USC wins this game close.
So I'm gonna say that Notre Dame comes in and throws an upset. It's kind of just what they've been good at this year, and not that I sit here and say I would enjoy Notre Dame winning, but I'm in the business of just having everyone beneath us knocked off. So if something happens, both of these Big Ten teams are getting in. So give me Notre Dame with the upset. I think it'll be by 3. So I'm gonna say 42-41 or something. I don't know. Within 3.
Yeah, all season long I've been trying to pray on USC's downfall. Each time they keep narrowly squeaking out wins. And you know what? They probably will again, but I don't think they do it by 5.5. I'm going to go Notre Dame plus 5.5. I think the chance for an upset's there. I think they definitely keep it close. I think they give USC's offense a ton of struggle. But look, Caleb just keeps pulling rabbits out of his hat. So I'm no longer optimistic about them losing in these situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can agree with Lexi. I want, I am rooting for a bad Caleb Williams performance in the USC loss as well. But I don't know. I feel like it's going to be one of those games where he just, like Bobby mentioned, just finds a way to win at the end. We didn't do picks for Clemson, South Carolina. I'll just go ahead and quickly say I think Clemson wins that one. Does anyone?
I like Clemson as
disagree?
well. I like Clemson as well. They've been on a roll since losing to Notre Dame, and you know,
yeah. I can't think two upsets are going to happen. That's kind of fire. Clemson's probably going to take this one, although that'd be great.
Yeah, well, Clemson's defense is also so good at just frustrating quarterbacks, and you know, as the resident Spencer Rattler expert here, yeah, he's easy to completely unravel and just give you an awful performance. And if Clemson's defense gets to him early, it's curtains.
Yeah. Interesting though. I mean, South Carolina and USC are two teams that are both coming off emotional wins. So we'll see how that affects each team. I think that's going to affect South Carolina way more than it'll affect USC. But yeah, I got Clemson taking care of business there.
This podcast has just been me talking about my exes, hasn't it?
Yeah. You know what? That's a lot of podcasts. So you're good.
Fair enough. You're
good. Well, listen, let's go to the NFL. Should be a exciting weekend in college football. I can't wait for it. But let's talk NFL. And hey, actually, that you just sparked my. Never mind. Wait, is Oklahoma bowl eligible yet?
Oh yeah, we're in.
Okay, so I was gonna say you get to enjoy your last. Oh, you did. You got one more.
Nah, we got. I'm getting all pumped up for the guaranteed rate bowl, or you know, who knows?
The Welch's fruit snacks.
Hey, if we beat Texas Tech, we can go to the Cheez-It Bowl, and I'm so excited to get. I've been wanting an OU Cheez-It Bowl shirt, but I've not wanted them to be bad enough, and somehow we got so bad that we weren't going to make it, but maybe we might make it this time. So
there you go.
That's
funny. All right. On to the NFL. We got Bengals at Titans, a rematch of last year's AFC divisional round where the Bengals found a way to win despite Joe Burrow being sacked 9 times. Jamar Chase will be back for this game. So good news for all you fantasy football players out there that have Jamar Chase. I am one of them. I'm excited to have Jamar Chase back in my lineup. But yeah, Tennessee Titans, we've talked about them before. Playing very good football, not getting enough respect. They just beat Green Bay last Thursday, which was insane. They had a lot of injuries, and to win that game is absolutely wild. So they sit at 7-3. The Bengals sit at 6-4. Big AFC game. Could be a playoff preview if these two teams might meet up again sometime down the line. But we know Jamar Chase is playing. This is sort of a fun question, not really concerning the game, but looking at what Mike Vrabel and the Titans have been able to do the last 3-4 seasons, however long he's been the head coach there. Do you think Mike Vrabel is a top 5 NFL head coach currently?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I would just say, just because of the way that he's kind of built the identity and toughness for that franchise again, and it really revolves around him. I mean, that's just who he's been always. Even back in his Ohio State days, just always kind of that tough guy. So I like what he's doing. I think he's had some unlucky breaks here in the postseason, that is kind of not reflecting on what he is and what he's been as a coach. But I'd say, yeah, I mean, I'd love, for him to be the coach if Dan Campbell wasn't or something like that, just because he's just a tough guy that's not going to put up with any shit. So he's gonna make sure that things are going to go as smooth as they can. And I think I like what he's done at Tennessee. He just needs to catch those lucky breaks there in the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right in the head. He's built a model of consistency there in Nashville, with the Titans, and I feel like too many times we base a coach's success off what they do in the playoffs. It's the NFL; anything can happen in that, and if you're looking at that, it's kind of like the whole rings debate. If we're talking about the NBA, you can be good and not win a title, just because Brian Scalabrine won a ring doesn't make him better than, Russell Westbrook. So yeah, I think that kind of goes for playoff wins as well. I think what they've done has been impressive over the past couple seasons, and sure, yeah, I'll consider him top 5.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good coaches in the league right now. I think it's just so tough because we're in this kind of place where like there's the guys that have like there's a long time head coaches right that have won Super Bowls. They have not had that much success as of recently, but like I mean, you still have to give them their credit, right? Like John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin. You've got some of the new guys like McVay and Shanahan who have done pretty well as of late. Of course, Bill Belichick's the GOAT. So Vrabel's, definitely in the conversation of a top 5 coach to me because of the consistency that he's shown, through the time he's been there. It kind of reminds me of what John Harbaugh's done in Baltimore. Like Baltimore's always good. Like since the Joe Flacco days, like always a playoff team. From Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson. Always been able to be in the conversation, and that's what Vrabel's doing there at Tennessee. He started with Mariota and Tannehill. I think at some point they're going to have to bring in a quarterback that can do a little bit more than I think Tannehill will be able to do in the playoffs in order to take that next step. It might be a guy like Derek Carr or somebody that like is just a little bit better in order to take you to the next level in the playoffs. But you cannot argue with the consistency that Vrabel's been able to show there in Nashville, like you mentioned, Bobby, and definitely the best Belichick, the best of the Belichick coaching tree, like without question. And yeah, you can at least say that for the guy. But yeah, I think what he's doing should be given a lot more shine and credit. But the Bengals in this game are favored. It's pretty much pick them at -1.5. Over under is 42.5. I think the Titans are just finding ways to win. Derrick Henry's running the piss out of the ball. This should be a great physical matchup. The Bengals with Jamar Chase are obviously an explosive offense. We'll see kind of what happens, but I think I'll take the Titans to win this game.
I like the Titans as well. At home, they've been on a roll. Let's go with them.
Yeah, I think with Jamar Chase being the first game back, that that chemistry is going to be a little bit cold, and like you said, Tennessee is just finding the way to get it done right now. So they win at home.
Alrighty, let's move on to the last game we'll talk about this evening, and it is the Green Bay Packers and Philadelphia Eagles. That's the Sunday night matchup. This game probably folks would have thought it would have been maybe a little bit higher stakes, but I mean it's high stakes. I mean the Eagles, I believe, like if they win this game, like maybe they need another win or something. But I mean they'd be close to clinching the playoff spot. They're at 10-1. Packers lose, you're essentially like hanging on to your playoff hopes by a thread at 4-8. Not the season that folks maybe thought the Packers would have, but they just haven't been able to figure it out. We just talked about their loss to the Tennessee Titans, like not great considering the injuries that were on Tennessee, and you're at home in Lambeau, in that environment. So if they do lose at this point in the season, and obviously you look at the rest of the way, and there's not much really to play for. Especially with the Vikings who are going to run away with the division. Should the Packers think about sitting Aaron Rodgers if they lose this game? And
yeah,
let me. Yeah, no, Glenn.
You go ahead.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to add context to the question, like okay, you think maybe why would they sit him? Like a lot of folks have been talking about, well, let's perhaps the Packers should see what Jordan Love, has, to see if they could possibly, scrape up some trade value for him, or decide if they can continue with Jordan Love and possibly move Aaron Rodgers in the offseason. Like, there's reasoning sort of behind that, not just, sitting him for the sake of sitting him, but the Packers obviously need to figure out what they need to do, next steps wise. So, with that, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, Green Bay just confirmed that Rodgers' right thumb is broken. So that's obviously not great for him. And my thing is, look, it's not getting any better. I don't know if it's necessarily Aaron Rodgers' fault that everything's going bad. Yeah, but at the same time, he's not helping the situation. This is a team that needs a long, painful rebuild. Frankly, it's just the way of how teams go in cycles, and this cycle is over for the Packers. And that's remarkable. You got to give it up to him. That the transition from Favre to Rodgers was great, but now it's over. So I think you sit him. You might try to send him out. I don't know how many teams want him at this point. A pretty old kind of damaged goods guy who's going to give you nothing but bad PR, why do you want that on at least here's the thing. At least, like, for example, Kyrie Irving can play well. Aaron Rodgers kind of can't, he's past his prime, and, I think you just shut him down at this point. There's no point at playing him. This is a lost season for the Packers at this point. It's going to get even worse on Sunday. So yeah, shut him down. Show's over, folks. Time to reset.
God, that's like music to my ears. I'm loving every bit of it. The show must be over finally. But, the thing is, if you bench Aaron, there's going to be no going back from it. So it's like, if you bench him at this point, he's gone. And I think that's what it's all coming to, the fat lady singing it's over for Aaron and Green Bay in this relationship. And, he did. It was a great transition from Favre, and it's been, thank God it's only been 2 Super Bowls and all that stretch of time. But, seriously, for how much, they think that they're the God's greatest gift. It's like 2 Super Bowls with those quarterbacks. Come on.
Could you imagine, 40 years of the 2 of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game when you have 2 Super Bowls?
Only 2.
That's insane. That is absolutely insane.
It is. Oof. But I'm ready to see what Jordan Love has, though, and that's just speaking unbiasedly that I think that he is your next thing, and you don't want him just sitting here and watching this all burn and then think, okay, well, why aren't you playing me now? So it's a very important decision for them to go, but I think that they should. I think it's time, and just knowing that they once they make that decision, though, there is the bridge is burned. So.
I have a question kind of outside of this. Would you rather have 20 years, 1 Super Bowl? Would you rather have the Super Bowl at the beginning of the run or at the end? Which would be more painful? Going through 20 years and then finally getting it, or getting one and then be like, oh, we're going to win a bunch of Super Bowls, and then getting nothing else?
I'm picking the end. Give me, the struggle, and then at the end, finally, you get one. Sort of like, that's
what my headstone's gonna say when I die. Okay, all that she wanted all this time was the Lions to win one time. So I hope to God, I can go out like that.
I mean, it's almost like Lions fans who were like, "Oh, Matt Stafford finally got one after all that time," even though it wasn't with Detroit.
No, you felt good for him. You did. Because it's a struggle. But I'm with you guys. I would hate for it to be at the beginning, and then you just think it's a demise after that. Where I've struggled. I've had nothing. So give it to me in the end. I've already paid my dues. I'll appreciate it way more, than I would in the beginning.
Just imagine.
I'm with y'all. Go ahead.
Max. No, you're good. I was gonna say, just imagine Chiefs fans, if you tell them, oh yeah, there might not be another one. They're like, blasphemy. It's just it's they won't believe it. But and it's hard to believe, but just like that's a possibility. Like, you know,
I mean, Patriots fans are getting smacked in the face with that now. So.
Yeah,
at least the Patriots won like 6 of them, but like
I know.
but yeah, no, winning one with a young quarterback, you'd be like, we're about to be the next dynasty. Like, and I think that maybe is a cautionary tale. Just enjoy the one. Like, what happens. I know as an OU fan, you know, we won the one in 2000, and that was like the first year I was like cognizant of sports, and I barely was into it because I was 5. And then ever since, I've just been like, we're going to get another one. And we haven't gotten anything since. So I think y'all are exactly right. You want it to come after a long period of time of pain and suffering, because then, you know, it'll feel earned instead of like something that just should happen every other year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. Well, you know, this game, Eagles Packers. This is, I mean, Eagles favored by 7. I think the Eagles -7 is, especially with the Aaron Rodgers broken thumb news, easiest bet of the week, for sure. And I think the Eagles come away with this one for sure. No questions asked. Over under is 46. Should be an easy dub for Philly.
Yep. I think Philly rolls big here. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Alrighty. Well, let's get to the final part of our show. The fun part, we like to call it Lock of the Week. We have not done well this year at all, but Lexi is still beating Bobby and I with her 4-5 record. Bobby's at 3-6, myself at 2-7. All of us took an L last week. I had Michigan and Illinois with the over for 42. That was, well, it wasn't that bad. I think the total was like 36, so it was like a few points off, but unfortunately did not get that to cash. Bobby had the Chiefs -6.5. That was a closer game than we thought. And then Lexi had Vikings winning outright, and the Vikings got beat like they stole something.
This is what happens when I rly on Kirk Cousins. Like, this is why I never bet on anything with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
We need Alabama back on the slate so Lexi could get some more wins.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. the Alabama on the road. The road team covers. I mean, the home team covers. Like, those are easy bets.
Fade Bama.
Yeah,
fade Bama.
All day.
Easy money. All right, I'm gonna go first in my log of the week. I'm taking, like I said, easiest bet of the week. I'm gonna take Eagles -7 against the Packers. Gonna try to get an easy win on the board this week.
Okay, I'll go next then. I hate to do it. I'm fading Michigan. Ohio State -7.5 here. I think they get a big win in the shoe. I think just everything's trending in their direction. So, by the way, you're welcome, Lexi, because now it probably won't happen. So,
right,
there you go.
I appreciate it. It was like kind of a toss up here. I think I'm going to take with Notre Dame at +5.5. We were talking earlier, that Notre Dame's definitely going to cover here and it's going to definitely pull out the win. So let's hope.
Let's hope.
All right. Well, those are your 3 locks this week. We've got the Eagles at -7 for my lock of the week. Bobby's got Ohio State -7.5 against Michigan, and Lexi's got Notre Dame +5.5 versus USC. 3 interesting locks. A lot of great football. Even the games we didn't talk about, there was a lot of good football this weekend. So enjoy. Well, actually, never mind. Let me not say that because I don't know when he's going to put this out. But anyway, enjoy all the football. Enjoy everything. Y'all stay safe. We'll see you next weekend. We're going to talk about championship weekend in college football. Probably won't get to NFL at all because we got a lot of championship games to talk about. But should be a lot of fun. So we'll see you right back here. This has been the Weekenders, y'all.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Peace.
See y'all.
See you.